Copyright disclaimer. Under Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Okay, you guys, I feel like this is a very good informative page or website. It's from the wiseoldgoat.com. Wonder if Wise Beard Man is related. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm going to go. I wanted you guys to see the initial page. Definitely going to be reading a lot from this one. Okay, this is what I wanted to cover. Now, we must keep in mind anyone under the age of 18 years old who is a minor. And my last video ran so long that I guess this is sort of in two parts. You know, federal definition of abuse and neglect in relation to conditions, formulas, Scientology policies, and ethics handlings. So let's keep in mind this applies to a child in Scientology. Anyone who refuses a confessional should be turned over to the ethics officer. Dated 6 March 82. See what simplified is. David Mayo versus Sect Checking and Confessionals, page 2. Imagine a little boy or a little girl who's 5 years old being told they must adhere to these things. That, my friends, is child abuse and or child neglect as per federal definition of child abuse and or child neglect. Confessionals, ethics reports required. It should be rather obvious here that all these listed changes from March 1982 regarding confessionals, also known as auditing, were part of the very same package. It does appear that matters relating to this topic at this point in time were really stepping up and on all fronts. Some implementations were minor, some other had significant ramifications. Interesting is as well that all 6 of these references also share the same author. And that author wasn't L. Ron Hubbard. The author was David Mayo, at the time posted as their senior CS International, basically the highest tech person after L. Ron Hubbard. Trying to figure out what exactly is this. So as usual, it becomes the story of the prestigious executives like David Mayo. (1982) 1. Anyone who refuses a confessional should be turned over to the ethics officer. 6 March 82. Federal Bureau of Investigations. Is that child abuse as defined by federal definition of child abuse and or child neglect? to have children turned over to the ethics officer. And in some cases, the ethics officer is a child as well. Is that clear enough for everyone? Okay, again, we're going to keep children in mind here. In 1982, we see the release of HCOB PL 6 March 82, Confessional Tech Policies. How about that, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Homeland Security, Federal, already said that, Child Protective Services. Any executive found to be discouraging or forbidding confessionals, you know that's your moneymaker, right? Or refusal to permit the tech to be applied or omitting the application of it is subject to immediate suspension from post. This includes children. It to receive a confessional and a ComEv on a change of non-cooperation with enforcing confessional technology. And anyone who refuses a confessional or who refuses to answer a reading question, like a child, should be turned over to the ethics officer in the guardian's office, notified then and there. Wait a minute, you guys, wasn't the guardian's office where Mike Rinder worked? The one that everybody wants to make a parade for, and almost like certain individuals think that Rinder was a guru just like L. Ron Hubbard. But I digress. Again, let's just think this is a 5-year-old boy or a 5-year-old girl. Confess or have ethics action taken. I would say, FBI, that would define child abuse and or child neglect. The signature area at the end of this reference says, first, L. Ron Hubbard founder, allegedly, directly followed with the notice, assisted by senior CS International, in the composer initials DM. Are they throwing DM under the bus once more? That tells us that this was David Mayo. Oh, never mind. I thought it was the other one. But then, per the rules as they were established in 1977, excuse me, by HCOB 24, January 77. Tech Correction Roundup. More info here. Separate window. It actually means that it was written by this assistant. And so we can conclude that this reference was actually compiled and issued by David Mayo. Going off into the Yonderland as usual, right? This does get a little bit deep. I'm trying to brush off all this talk about Mayo and that. So this gets particularly interesting if you pair this up with just 3 days later issued HCO PL 9 March 82. Eligibility for OT levels that directs. Such confessionals are done as part of HGC or review service and are not a free service. The child auditors are their cash cow, right? As there is much gain to be had from getting off OWs, that's overts and withholds. And confessionals may also be ordered for other reasons by case supervisors and executives and ethics officers. Hold on, this is very, very deep in Scientologies. So what I want to focus on here is that everything that I'm talking about here with the confessionals, the security checks, the policies, that were amended by David Mayo, which I thought was against L. Ron Hubbard's policies to amend anything. But I want to focus on all these things that they're talking about are applicable to children 18 years or under, which by federal statute would be defined as child abuse and or child neglect. It is on grade 2 processing, that's auditing, that a PC, that's pre-clear, which are often children, is audited to relief from the hostilities and sufferings of life. Because every 5-year-old needs to get that off their chest, right? Using all of the technology which applies at that level to achieve the results. Therefore, any list of expanded grade 2 processes must include I'm in auditing land right now. Therefore, any list of expanded grade 2 processes must include a Joburg, that's Johannesburg, sec check, that children are subject to, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, Child Protective Services. The policy covering that is HCOPL, dated 7 April 61, Romeo Bravo, Rev 2210.80. Johannesburg Confessional List Revised. Mind you guys, they're applying this to a child. Children. Number 2. Any other prepared confessional list which may be sec-checked. I don't know, wait. I don't know what that means. Oh, CS, that would be case something. For the case by the case supervisor, which often is a child, by the way, FBI, to ensure that the pre-clear is fully cleaned up on this lifetime overts and withholds. Imagine every day that these children have to keep coming up with their overts and withholds, which in very loose terms means sins. And the withholds, you know what the withholds are? You guys are going to love this one. You're going to love this. Children being told they have withholds. So children are not allowed to really have their own private thoughts. And if they have some type of private thoughts that maybe go against Scientology policies, it would be considered a withhold. In other words, you're not allowed to have private thoughts. But I think where they drive it really hard would be, let's just use, for example, and we're gonna focus on children. Let's use, for example, that a 12-year-old boy is feeling that he's attracted to other boys, or maybe 12, 13. That would be considered a withhold, because L. Ron Hubbard stated that homosexuals were a 2 on the tone scale. Even though go see what L. Ron Hubbard was involved in with the secret societies and the ORGIES that they had. It's all about divide and conquer, you guys. So back to a young boy being attracted to other young boys, maybe 12, 13 years old. If he chooses not to disclose this in auditing, because that's a private thought, that would be considered a withhold. Sound like child abuse as per federal definition of child abuse and or child neglect? I don't want to get too deep in this because it's going off into la la land as usual. So apparently David Mayo made some changes or amended some of L. Ron Hubbard's, allegedly, Scientology policies, which, number one, is against the rules. But my focus is the children and how these policies of various policies in regards to confessionals, which are auditing, sect checks such as Johannesburg sect check, are all applied to children, which henceforth means child abuse and child neglect are written directly into L. Ron Hubbard, allegedly, Scientology policies. So apparently, if I understand this loosely, David Mayo was trying to make this amendment to the policy stating that security checks no longer existed. I wonder why that would be, you guys. Don't you guys wonder why that would be? Okay, so back to the basics. Okay, you guys see the very top of this, the one that I had clicked on. 1982, 1. Anyone who refuses a confessional, like a child, should be turned over to the ethics officer. Dated 6 March 82. In 1982, we see the release of HCOB policy letter 6 March 82. Might want to write that down, FBI. Confessional tech policies. Any executive found to be discouraging or forbidding confessionals. Oh, I think I read this, you guys. I'm going to skip that part because I already read that one. And anyone who refuses a confessional, like a child, or refuses to answer a reading question, like a child, should be turned over to the ethics officer and the guardian's office, notified then and there. Wonder what Mike Rinder knew about that. So I'm going to just stop there. I will leave a link in the description box. Like and subscribe if you choose. Otherwise, have an amazing day or night wherever you are. Peace.